Good evening and welcome to Cutler Bay's Town Council meeting for Wednesday, January 15th, 2005. Everybody would please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Duncan?
Here.
Councilmember Ramirez?
Here.
Councilmember Lord?
Here.
Vice Mayor Callahan?
Here.
Mayor Mirabod. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Would you please advise the audience regarding public comments?
Please be advised that when joining the meeting, you are automatically muted. Welcome to tonight's meeting. The public was able to make public comments prior to the meeting, either by leaving a voicemail message or sending an email to the town clerk. We received no voicemails or email public comments for any items on the agenda tonight. If you wish to speak tonight, please press *9 and the host will be alerted. Pressing *9 is known as raising your hand. Once you press *9, you will be placed in a queue to speak and will be called upon by your name or the last 3 digits of your telephone number. Please wait to be called upon. Please state your name and address. If you are a hired consultant or town employee and/or if you are engaged in lobbying activities and/or representing an organization, please provide that information before speaking. Please be sure to be in a quiet area to avoid unnecessary noise. A time limit of 3 minutes will be imposed for each speaker during public comments.
At this time, I'll open up the floor to the chambers for anybody who would like to make public comments. Your mic, you just gotta.
Little button.
Good evening, Council. Brooke DeMello Gomez, 8501 Caribbean Boulevard. I just wanted to ask, I have not read the fiscal document resolution that's going to be given tonight, but I'm hoping that it addresses the cost of living, the COLA. Last year, we saw very high percentages of increases to salaries. And I know the council discussed going back and looking at the percentage for those cost of living increases in addition to merit. I would recommend that we consider a cap if salaries are very high, a variable rate. I definitely think that people making lower salaries should have a cost of living increase that's reasonable. But I think a cap that you discussed is something that should be considered given those percentages were over 10% last year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Seeing no further public comment, anybody in the queue?
No one in the queue at this time.
All right, I will close public comment at this time, and I will ask on the dais if there's any additions or corrections to the agenda. Hearing none, I will move the agenda to the floor and open it with the town council announcements and board reports. I do have an addition that I would like to bring forward that came out of the Parks Committee, and this has to do with the pickleball courts in Saga Bay and about some of the concerns that some of the neighbors had, plus also an update on some improvements that are being done. But I think it's important to bring that forward at this time as part of the report. So I'll turn it over to the town manager who can provide further details. Ralph?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. And you're absolutely right. We've been talking to some of the neighbors there when it's on the phone as well as via emails. And I'm glad to announce the couple of items for that. It's going to be improvements there. First, along Southwest 80th Court, which to get everybody's bearings right, it's the west side of the Saga Bay Park. We are in the final stages of submitting the plans to Miami-Dade County Public Works Department to create 25 on-street parking along Southwest 80th Court. If you're familiar with Southwest 80th Court, it's a 2-lane highway each direction. So we're going to create that there. In addition, along Southwest 70th Court, which is directly for those homes that are adjacent to the Saga Bay Park in the cul-de-sac, we're going to be installing various oak trees and hedges there along the swale. So the idea is to have the folks that are using those pickleball courts now use the 80th court parking area and relieve that stress along that cul-de-sac there. And then obviously we still maintain I call it the green swale criteria there along Southwest 70th Court. In addition, within the pickleball courts itself, we have procured, and we're just waiting for it to arrive, a nice big windscreen, similar to the ones that we have on Franjo Road in the outfield. This black tarp with our logo on it. In addition, we are, in terms of the current times, right? The current times of the court operations are Monday through Saturday, 7:30 to 10:30 p.m., and Sundays from 7:30 to 9:30 p.m. I am evaluating those times now to see what we could do in terms of, reducing the impact to the neighbors that are there. It's been so successful that folks are illegally parking there. There's some noise issues there, but at the same time, we want to make sure that we are very cautious to the needs of the neighbors there as well. So I am evaluating the times. You should see something here in the next couple of days through our communications director that we're going to be announcing some times there. Again, just the current times right now are 7:30 a.m. to 10:30 Monday through Saturday, and Sunday 7:30 to 9:30. Those times will change. And I'll be making that determination, obviously in collaboration with our Parks and Recreation Director. But thank you, Vice Mayor, for bringing the issue up.
Great. Thank you, Ralph. I would ask that you inform the council of those time changes prior to making it public. One, just in case there's any, obviously, this is a operational issue and does not need to have council input. But I'd appreciate it if you would make those times available to the council, for one, that we could review them in case we have any additional comments, and two, that we're prepared and we understand what the times are as they change prior to them going to the public.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. Okay. Then we'll move on to our reports, and we'll turn it back over to you, Ralph, for your town manager report.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Tonight we have, as we always do, Ms. Emma Jones from Stantec Owners Rep to provide the council an update on the 16-acre Legacy Park Municipal Complex. So Emma, if you're online.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
All right, so I think I only have audio, no worries. I have an update to the presentation that we showed last week. Sorry, Emma Jones, Stantec, owner's representative for the town of Cutler Bay. There we go. All right. I have an update to the presentation that we showed regarding the various options for the 16-acre legacy park. The updates are based on the decision to go ahead and remediate all 16 acres of the park. So these are the updated versions that take into account those options. So Ralph, if it's okay with you, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and run through this.
Emma, I would wait till we get to item 11B, since we're going to discuss it, later on the agenda. So I think just for the general public, what you're referring to is that the presentation that we provided to the council during the special call workshop on January the 7th. So that's what she's referring to, Mayor, members of council, and also members of the audience. So we'll hold off that presentation until item 11B that's further on the agenda.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you, Emma. We'll get back to that in terms of that, because we're going to kind of roll all that into one presentation there on item 11B. Next, we have Gary Rattay from Kimley-Horn and Ms. Delgado from Kimley-Horn to provide us an update on Franjo Road. So I think we have Gary remote. Gary?
Video. All right.
Okay, you're on.
I think we're good. All right. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Manager. Good evening, Vice Mayor, members of the council. Gary Rattay with Kimley-Horn and Associates. Pleased to be here tonight to provide you your January 2025 update for Franjo Road. Happy New Year to everybody. Also have Janet Delgado in council chambers with you. Janet will be up in a little bit to provide you a public information update, but I'll go ahead and jump right into the construction activities. I mean, obviously through the holidays, the work zone was closed. It's now back open in full swing. We're holding our bi-weekly progress meetings. And at this point, are the slides available for the maintenance of traffic plan that's just been put in place this
Yes, Gary, we're sharing it now. There you go.
sharing it now? Perfect. Okay. Yeah, so cost of tractors, the contractor on the project is focusing on bringing phase one, work zone one to substantial completion, which is from 184th down to Sterling. And, you know, all the drainage has primarily been done there. They've been working on all the streetscape improvements, and we're at a point now where we need to close the Sterling Drive and the Franjo Road intersection, which is the south end of that first work zone. And that created a couple challenges. First, that intersection or the area around it had some of the unsuitable materials in it that we had discussed on the last presentation. So it took a little extra planning to basically remove and replace that material, which is going to be ongoing. And then also, we needed to implement a change to the maintenance of traffic plan because that intersection there has been critical for people that are either on the east or west side of the phase one road closure on Franjo. It was the only way aside from 184th to get across that work zone instead of going all the way up to 184th. So by closing this intersection, what we basically have done to provide some relief to get from, say, the west side of the work zone to the east side of the work zone was we opened up the northbound traffic on Franjo Road. So that blue path that you can see there, we basically did that because we understood there's going to be a lot of traffic coming from the west side across, say, 186th, and with Sterling and Marlin or Franjo closed, they can no longer get across the work zone. So now they can go north on the actual work zone one because it's substantially complete enough to allow traffic to go north. And then once they get up to 184th, the rest of the route is very similar as to how it was. So this has been in place now since Monday. It's been distributed. Alfredo, Public Works Director, distributed it to all the public services. It's been advertised, and Janet's been talking specifically with people in schools to make sure that people understand basically what this flow is. So now at this point, the contractor is going to focus on finishing that final intersection and anything left in work zone one so that we can open work zone one by the end of February, which is the schedule the schedule update that we presented last time. So if you go to the next slide, down one, there we go. This is still part of that maintenance of traffic plan. You can see up there where the blue line is just showing the south half of that northbound traffic. The rest of this blue line is pretty much how it was before. The only difference now is that we're really treating Sterling Drive as a local road, a closed road open only to local traffic, since you can no longer cross Franjo on Sterling. So the contractor's aware they need to be available to provide help to make sure residents, schools have the access that they need from the east side or the west side. So this will be in place through the end of February. That's the plan. That's the schedule update that we provided last time. And then once we can open that intersection of Franjo and Sterling again, then that'll free things up. So while they're finishing that up, they're also moving forward with completing drainage and doing the streetscape improvement jobs in work zone 2, which is from Sterling Drive down to Tiffany. And basically at this point, the intent is to have, that done, at which point we'll move into phase 3, allow them to move into phase 3 to start drainage work there. because phase one will be completely open. And by the way, at that point, phase one will be open in both north and southbound traffic. And the reason we're only doing north, I'll back up a little bit, northbound through the work zone one right now is because there is still enough work left where the contractor wasn't wasn't comfortable opening two-way traffic at this point. However, if you're on the east side trying to go west, the route takes you up to 184th, so you can get to the west side of work zone one. So I don't know if you have any questions on this specifically, but at this point, work zone two is still on schedule to be done, and we'll show the sequence of construction here on the schedule that we provided last month, and we'll do another maintenance of traffic when we move from work zone two into work zone three. So if you would go to the next slide. All right, at this point, that's pretty much the update on construction. Again, trying to wrap up phase one by February, phase two by April, and be moving into phase three in February also. So unless you have any questions for me at this point, I'd like Janet to come up and provide her update on public involvement activities.
Any comments from the council? Nope, no comments. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you, Gary.
Absolutely.
Good evening, members of the council. I'd like to report that during the month of December, which we're going back a little bit, I continued public outreach with the residents and the businesses. There was a local business, Pierre's Dry Cleaning, that had some questions regarding the medium, which we were able to address right away. Also from December 23rd to the 1st, the job site was consistently maintained in a safe and clean condition. We prioritize minimizing disruption to the community and upholding the high standards expected for this community. I want to touch base a little bit of what Gary just mentioned. We did start strong January 2nd, moving along. And like he mentioned, we just started the new traffic pattern Monday. Happy to say that we haven't had any issues, at least issues that the town, Quintero, engineer, with any residents. As a matter of fact, I've been able to meet a lot of these residents. And I have to tell you, you have a very beautiful community. And they're happy, they're excited, you know. They have questions and we answer them. Sometimes it may not be what they want to hear, but they do understand the process. So we're looking forward to finishing up and opening up Franjo at the end of February. And that would be a relief, especially for the local businesses, and continue moving forward with the project. So if anybody has any questions for me, I am more than happy to answer.
Any questions from the council?
No?
No,
All righty,
very
thank you,
much.
thank you so much.
Ralph, I do have a comment regarding this. I know that I have received, and I'm sure some of the other council members have received emails from our residents regarding Tiffany and the traffic on Tiffany. Do we have a plan in place? And if not, do we have, are we going to look at putting a plan in place on additional traffic officers there, just to keep an eye on folks that want to speed through that area?
Yeah, thank you, Vice Mayor. Yeah, we received a couple emails regarding Tiffany and 89th Court, if I'm not mistaken. And one of the things that we do, as soon as we get those, we share it with the entire construction team because they meet, once a week in Town Hall. But more importantly, we also share that with our police department. And then our police major, Leo Rossetti, then sends it over to their traffic enforcement. Maybe start spotting enforcement there. Hopefully we can change those traffic habits there. Basically saying, yes, we put a patrol officer there, and hopefully we can change that behavior. So we know that some of those some of those roads are going to have those pinch points there. But I know I received the same emails, and we call those tracers that the police department goes out there and issues. So yes, we monitor that through the police department. So that'll be the plan. Is it going to be a permanent officer? No, but hopefully we could change it. What we actually do, if you've seen it out there, is we call it our smart radar trailer. In fact, the reason why we call that a smart radar trailer, because we put it out there for, at least 2 days, and it'll actually tell us when that speeding is occurring. So that way we could send our traffic enforcement officers targeting that exact time.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's great, but it's been sitting at the traffic circle on Caribbean Boulevard. And although I certainly appreciate it, I mean, because I live right there, I think it'd be much better served if we could place it over there in Tiffany.
I'll check with them, but I think Leo's not here, but I think we have 2 of them, but I'll check.
Again, if we do have 2 of them, I think both of them would be better served on Tiffany than at the circle there. And although I appreciate it, I think it's probably better served over there.
So noted. Thank you. We'll get that with the police department. Next, Vice Members of Council, we have a financial report. Actually, we have a combo first and second quarter of our fiscal year 24, and we have Robert Dario, Finance Director, present the report.
Good evening, Vice Mayor, members of the council. As the manager mentioned, this is a report for the first half of fiscal year 24. Which ends the quarter ended March 31, 2024. For the first half of the year, the town's operating results have been favorable versus the budget. We have a surplus, or we're running a surplus of roughly 5.9 million, primarily from stronger than anticipated revenues versus the prorated budget for most all revenue types, as well as favorable variance in overall expenditures. Of course, over the remaining course of the year, as ad valorem tax collections significantly slow down, the surplus for the first half of the year will decline, as it does every year, as we progress towards the end of the fiscal year. By far, the single largest revenue source for fiscal year 24, as it has been in prior years, is ad valorem taxes. Consistent with prior years, the bulk of the property taxes are collected in the first several months of each year, and year to date through March 31, the first 6 months of the year, the town has collected approximately 98% of total budgeted ad valorem taxes. Other revenue categories, except for building and zoning and franchise fees, are showing strong performance versus the budget. Most significantly, local government half-cent sales tax and utility taxes. Interest income also has a strong favorable variance versus the budget. That's due primarily to improved interest rates on deposit balances, as well as an overall increase in investable deposits earning interest. The shortfall in building and zoning revenues results from projects anticipated to be commenced in fiscal year 24 being delayed. And as a result, budgeted permit fees were not realized. And for the full fiscal year, building permit fee revenue will be substantially under budget. The slight unfavorable variance for franchise fees is purely a timing issue with the receipt of FPL franchise fees, and is not an issue on an overall annual basis. The other revenue line item is a catch-all line item, includes many different types of revenue sources. But the favorable variance for this first 6 months of the year due primarily to the collection of insurance proceeds, roughly $65,000, which were not budgeted, as well as favorable results versus the prorated budget for several revenue streams, including CITT administration fees, local business tax receipts, burglar alarm fees, parks fees, and judgments and fines. Expenditures are faring well versus the budget. The only expenditure category that has significant unfavorable variance for the first half of fiscal 24 is contractual services. The unfavorable variance for contractual services other line item results primarily to timing of expenditures, as well as some unbudgeted expenditures made related to the newly acquired land parcel on Old Cutler Road and Southwest 87th Avenue. In the first 6 months of fiscal 24, Public Works completed approximately 364,000 of sidewalk repairs versus a prorated budget of $138,000. So that's just a timing, primarily is a timing where the work was front loaded into the early part of the year. Additionally, Parks incurred approximately 131,000 in unbudgeted expenditures related to new land parcel, which was about 48,000, and to replace damaged shade structures, which were approximately 83,000. Finally, general government had an unfavorable variance in contractual services, approximately 74,000, primarily due to the timing of the IT expenditures paid at the beginning of the fiscal year. The QNIP bond payment that we make to the county every year in the first quarter came in at $321,000, which was in line with budget, and it reflects the county's most recent refinance amortization amount. And that's pretty much it. I mean, the results are very good. Revenues continue to be strong, and I have any questions from the council members, be happy to answer them.
Any comments from the council? Councilmember Duncan, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. How you doing, Robert? Quick question, and I'm not sure if you have the information readily available, but comparing where we are at this point in time during this fiscal year to last fiscal year, do you have that figure readily available by any chance?
Well, yeah, I mean, last fiscal year for the March quarter, I could tell you exactly, we were, so this year it's like 5.9 million surplus, and last year it was like 6.1, 6.2.
Okay.
So we're in line.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Oh, all right. Thank you very much, Robert. Appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
We appreciate good news.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Robert. Vice Mayor, members of council, also, I just got a text from our police major. We actually have 3 smart trailers. So if we need to deploy all 3, we'll make sure we put them on the route, there. So we do have 3. Thank you, Leo, for correcting me. Okay, next we have one of our, believe it or not, favorite times of the year, believe it or not, when I talk about that in terms of our legislative priorities. We have what we call, our famous, book when we go up to Tallahassee. In fact, this year we're scheduled to go to Tallahassee on March the 12th and return on March the 13th. So we have that where we have scheduled meetings with our different elected officials, committee members, and as well, more importantly, as well as staff members there, right? So this book, as I kind of like hold it up there for the camera, is comprised of our legislative support principles. I think if Mauricio, we could put that up there because we have it kind of segmented off on our agenda. It's almost like close to 11 chapters, but I'm just going to go briefly through each one there because they are posted on our website and let me see, and on our agenda. So our state legislative priorities, it basically talks about summarize our principles. Next, we have our 2025 proposed legislative funding priorities. Okay, these are our appropriation requests. They're not in any particular order, as you see there. When we have the Police Emergency Operations Center, and we have active adults, we have Economic Development Plan for US 1, we have Bel Air Park Community Center, we have 2 water quality improvement projects on Southwest 207th Street, 85th Avenue, and we also have another one in Lakes by the Bay. And then lastly, but also most importantly, we also have a Legacy Park soil remediation plan. So it's not in a particular order. That's just the numbers that we have them there with. And just a little quick recap. And before I introduce the team, as you recall, last year, members of council, we had our EOC request for the police department EOC. We actually had that passed through the Senate and the House. And it just got vetoed, just like a lot of other municipal projects, at the governor's office. So we feel really comfortable about that. And as well as making it a priority for the Legacy Park solar remediation project as well. Those two kind of, tie into place. I've had conversation with both Senator Calatayud and Representative Omar Blanco. They're aware of these priorities. What we do now after is that we will then start submitting the forms but they understand the priority of our soil remediation project as well as our police department EOC to go hand in hand what we're doing. Besides the other ones that we're going to do, but those are we call those the top ones. But let me get into the team that we have, and most of you know them, obviously. You know, we have our team lobbyists. We have Jonathan Kilman and Jared O'Rourke. We have and Edgar Fernandez that are always looking for the different types of appropriation. We also have, you know, this year we have Laura Reynolds that's looking at environmental bills to watch, and then another one that you have here too is that is part of our bills to watch under, I call it chapter 4 of our book, is an interesting one that we're working on too, that we keep talking about ad nauseum regarding our 16 acres and the fact that it's a brownfield, and the fact that we keep talking about VCTCs, voluntary cleanup tax credits. As you know, when we submit our expenditures for the year to FDEP, they will provide us an approval letter saying that, for example, you know, I think it was last year, and Michael Golston will correct me here later, you know, we submitted for $130,000, you know, for that. And then instantly they'll say, you qualify for all $130,000, but now we're going to issue you the voluntary cleanup credits for 50% of it. At that point, we sell those credits through our agreement with Publix at 90 cents on a dollar. That comes back to our coffers, right? You know, it comes back to our coffers. The remaining 50%, I'm just as excited because that the FDP has already approved that, but we get that at the end when the entire brownfield is in compliance. So that's something you're going to sit there and you'll see here, you know, in a couple minutes here, Michael Goldstein talking about something where we're trying to work with the legislature to maybe get that money a lot earlier. You know, that kind of goes hand in hand what we're talking about our Legacy Park program. So with that, I'd like to first, you know, call up Laura Reynolds just to briefly talk about some of the environmental bills that we're watching. Laura, if you're online.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you now. Go ahead.
Hey, thanks for having me. The good news is there are some good environmental bills that have been filed. We are definitely watching Senate Bill 80, which, if you remember all the controversy over protecting our state parks, that's what this bill is about. It does need some improvement, but definitely it will help us make sure that that kind of thing doesn't happen again. For those of you who may not remember, they were proposing to put golf courses and pickleball courts inside of our state parks. This bill is aimed at protecting them. And then SB 50 is nature-based solutions. This bill, really important. I think that it has the potential to, you know, help us work on projects to improve our coastal resilience. Now, those are the two best bills and the ones that we will likely support. The others, we're just looking at them as they have the potential to change over the session. Parts can be added that make it better or worse, and so on. There were also two new bills filed, SB 156, and this is the Safe Waterways Act. Looking good so far, but reviewing it, as well as SB 184, which is affordable housing, all have the potential to affect our environment. And so those are the ones that I'll be watching. And in addition, we're looking for allocation directly to the Environmentally Endangered Lands Program. We have an urging that we put together to pass through Dade County so that the lobbyists in Dade County can work on that. At this time, as you know, the EEL program is woefully underfunded, and we're hoping that they can help us purchase land in and around Cutler Bay for resiliency. And of course, we have some of those lands on the list, and we're looking to get that one-time allocation. We had a great response from the Dade delegation in presenting that information there. And I'm hoping that this is something that we could achieve this year and potentially set up something in the future for a direct allocation. We give 10% to that land acquisition trust fund annually. We're 15% of the GDP. So we haven't taken any of these funds since 1998, and that really resonated with the Dade delegation. And I'm hoping that Dade County can bring some funds home for conservation lands this year.
Thank you, Laura. And I think the important part there, vice mayor, members of council, is that we're watching these environmental bills as well as that we have a seat at the table, right? Because we know that the mayor is on two commissions, right? The Biscayne Bay Commission and the Biscayne Bay Watershed Commission at the county level. So we're constantly, monitoring these bills. So I just want to give and this list will change obviously as bills are filed, but these are the ones that we're kind of watching now. So I want to bring that awareness. So thank you, Laura. Next, I want to bring up briefly that I mentioned Michael Goldstein, our environmental counsel. Mike, if you could just provide us a quick recap of the bill that we're working with our friends from the Florida Brownfields Association regarding the VCTCs that we just discussed. Okay, Michael, you're on.
Okay, very good, Mr. Manager. Thank you so much. Good evening to all. Thank you for allowing me to present again and to continue to represent the wonderful town of Cutler Bay. Happy New Year to all. As the manager mentioned, we are hard at work on improving what is already a wonderful brownfields program, an environmental redevelopment program. We're advancing legislation. This year we're introducing it and advancing what I consider to be historic legislation from an environmental redevelopment perspective in a number of ways that has the potential to directly and materially benefit the town of Cutler Bay by doubling the tax credit award to the town on this particular site, which could ultimately result in additional $1 to $2 million in tax credits, as well as compress the time that it will ultimately take to get a no further action for the cleanup here and be able to demonstrate with confidence to the public that the park is safe for reuse and that the state and the county have signed off on all remediation activities. What we're doing specifically in that regard is this. Historically, it's been the case in Florida and in Miami-Dade County that where a larger site subject to contamination has been subdivided, the state and the county will only recognize one brownfield project. And the annual and aggregate caps that apply with respect to tax credits have to be shared by all of the parties who are developing pieces of the original larger site. That limitation is very much in effect now at Legacy Park because our portion of the site is 1/3 of what historically was operated by the original owner that caused the contamination that now all of the parties are dealing with. And so currently we have had to share our tax credits with at least one of the other parties. And there's a third party who may come to the table shortly, which could diminish the town's tax credit recovery as well. And in addition, notwithstanding how quickly the town completes its portion of the cleanup, the town will have to wait until these other parties complete their portions of the cleanup as well before a no further action certification is given. What we're doing is trying to inject common sense into the approach that the state and county take to providing regulatory oversight of contaminated land cleanup and redevelopment, and require the state and the county to focus on each project that's brought forward in its own right and on its own time frame. And if successful, the amendment that we're proposing will result in the town of Cutler Bay receiving its own set of tax credits on an annual basis and on an aggregate basis, which means that instead of being potentially limited annually to only $150,000 in tax credits, the town will be able to realize up to $500,000 in tax credits. And on an aggregate basis, instead of receiving up to just $300,000 or $330,000 in additional tax credits, the town could receive up to $1 million in additional tax credits just for finishing the cleanup. And finally, if the amendment is approved, once the town of Cutler Bay completes its cleanup, which will happen when the site is fully developed, the town will receive its no further action designation and doesn't have to wait until the other two parties complete their cleanup so that a single no further action designation would issue. These are very important developments that would arise out of successful legislation. And we're working closely with the manager and the manager's professional staff and outside lobbyists to try and make this happen.
So Vice Mayor, members of council, as you can see that we're trying to figure out how to expedite as much as we can, from our voluntary cleanup credits. As I mentioned in my example, it could be up to several years until the other parcels that are developed. And we're saying, listen, we developed it, we comply, we want the no further action, and give us the whole percentage now. So thank you, Michael. I know we're going to be working with the Florida Brownfield Association there as well and our lobbying team. So next we have Jonathan Kilman and Jared O'Rourke. Familiar faces that walk all the halls up in Tallahassee that are also monitoring the bills that Laura mentioned, the bill that's going to get filed and get a sponsor with Michael Goldstein. But more importantly, both Jonathan and Gerald, and then right after that, we're going to have Edgar Fernandez talk about some of the appropriations, what's hot, what's not up there. These are the folks that are there in the hallways, boots on the ground. In fact, I think Gerald, you're up in Tallahassee right now, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so go ahead, Gerald.
Jonathan, would you like to kind of go first?
Yeah, I'm on camera today, but again, of course, it's a pleasure to be with you, Council and Ralph. We're obviously very active this time of year. I'd like Jared to be the one to carry the torch this evening, but you'll have our full team working very hard in the weeks to come. And of course, just know that we're in constant contact with Ralph and staying on top of your priorities. But that, I'll hand it over to Jared.
Thank you, Jonathan, and thank you, Vice Mayor and Mr. Manager, giving us the opportunity to kind of just once again talk to you all about your legislative budget requests. We've been in contact with your manager, and we've received your portfolio of your requests. Where we've taken a look at those, which is good. We have them in time. The only real hard deadline that we have right now, which you guys are well within meeting, is the Florida House has a deadline of February 14th, where the on the House side, they have to have their LBRs or legislative budget requests filed. The Senate does not have as of yet a deadline, but they could provide one at a later time. Now that we have your proposals, we can now start building out your agenda and your schedule for your March 12th visit, which we're also very excited about you all coming in, and we look forward to seeing you all here in lovely Tallahassee. I think once again, your team picked the absolute right time to come up here and be in Tallahassee. I think if you all remember last year when they started the budget process, it was week 1 or week 2, and they jumped right into it, and they started holding committee meetings and running through the proposals. So I think your presence once again in Tallahassee at that time on the 12th is going to be absolutely perfect. And as well, and I know we always tout your manager's book, but that item is absolutely crucial in Tallahassee. And I will continue to tout the praises of that book, because it is absolutely just it's. I wish other cities did it, because it makes it easier for us when you're telling the story and you're meeting with members. It's just really is just a great tool for you all to have. So now that we have your proposals, we'll start building out your schedule with the appropriate committee staff, committee chairs, vice chairs, so you guys will be able to walk the halls and meet with those folks, as well as we've been in contact with your House members and House sponsors and Senate sponsors to move forward. Just as so you all know, March 4th is the kickoff of session. So we're looking forward to having you all up here, working with you all. We know your big kind of all of your requests are exceptionally important. We know that your big ones that you guys priorities are your emergency operations center and your legacy park soil remediation. So we know we've got our marching orders, and we know we're ready to go and start hitting the halls for you all.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Jared. And don't release the secret of our book too much, you know.
I'm
Thank you,
almost
guys.
worried about him putting us on the record, wanting our other cities to have it. But thank you for doing it, Ralph.
And thank you, guys. Thank you for all the hard work. I mean, literally, they're attending committee meetings now, as they mentioned. Last but not least, we also have Edgar Fernandez, that is in tune with a lot of the resiliency folks and a lot of the different grant portals that we have. So you can see how the team comes together here. So Edgar, I think you're on.
Am I connected there, Ralph?
Yes, sir.
Good evening, everybody. How y'all doing?
Good.
Happy New Year. So we're in committees now in the process in Tallahassee where the agencies are doing a lot of presentations. As the team has told you, there's about 30 new members, but all the programs and all the education of all the agencies have been started. And today I actually was participating with the one that we care about a lot, giving the overview about water quality, resiliency, coastal protection. So they were giving a lot of the overviews of the program, what they've done the last few years, the billions of dollars of investments from DEP and the agencies. And in December, Mr. Manager, as you recall, when we were doing the summit down Key West, they released actually, folks don't realize the resiliency grants have a statutory guidelines and deadlines. They did release the resiliency grants. There's two. There's a lot of folks that are asking for planning dollars, which Cutler Bay already had received money and is doing it. And I think you have that item up tonight for review. And then there's the folks for implementation. The state invested this year about 13 million on planning and about 225 million on resiliency implementation dollars. And if you look at the web dashboard website, they counted it very well, because at the beginning of the program, they were allowing folks to put in for implementation while they were doing their vulnerability assessments. But moving forward, you need to have that assessment completed to be eligible to receive dollars for implementation projects. So kudos to the town that a lot of smaller towns and communities are still struggling on getting the grants and doing the work. And so that'll prepare the town. One session is over in May. Those grants open up in July. And so if you remember last year, that portal closed in September. The governor is right now reviewing the budget requests from the departments as he prepares his recommended budget. And in the next couple of weeks, you're going to see those presentations in committee in detail about where the monies that are going to go. One of the key things, as Jonathan and the guys have mentioned, the message about if there's a grant for it, please go for a grant. Please come to us for things that are not grant oriented for political asks. And I've gotten that message clearly on the water environmental, but we need to educate them on grants that don't exist where the needs are, so we can do what we've done in the last 8 years. The money that we're doing now and the program that we have now, we're at 10 years of work. And the legislature, by dedicating those compact dollars by policy, that these dollars are only used for environmental purposes, are huge. And this year, Adam Blaylock, the deputy secretary, and their team has asked for more, because if you looked at last year's request, just in grants on water quality, they received over 2.5 billion in requests. And the state provided about 200 million. And once that message came out about grants, there was a huge list. So he's asking for close to about $500 million this year just on water quality grants. And there's more to come. So the department slowly is funding. And as the need grows, we'll be able to pull those dollars from the trust fund that sits there and resides there. Now, we'd have to make sure to protect those dollars don't get pulled for other purposes like they did in the past with the housing dollars, as you recall, that they tried to raid those housing dollars and used it for other purposes. So we're going to ensure that they keep dedicating those dollars for those things. So, Mr. Manager, the item you have tonight in the vulnerability assessment, I read it, and I'm going to keep going through it, but it's going to be important that we're ready in the summer to put in for implementation projects. So anything while you're up here, the conversations with Alex Reed and the DP team, if you want to have meetings with them to talk about your assessment that's going in, the follow-up, any questions, so we can be prepared. So when the grants are going to go in, and take advantage while you're here in Tallahassee. If not, we can facilitate Teams meetings, because before we put in those grants, I think it's just like a permit application. You want to do your due diligence to make sure that you're putting in the right stuff in there that will score you high to get those grant dollars for vulnerability. And but I appreciate the time tonight to update you all. Mr. Manager, it was a pleasure to see you in Key West, engaged and in the resiliency. The town's always been, forward thinking and proactive on things like Biscayne Bay and other things. So I got a lot of great comments to see that the town was participating with Dade County and all the other counties. It was the 16th annual event for South Florida, being leaders in climate issues. So it was a very great attended event, Mr. Manager. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Edgar. And I also like to, publicly, a little bit of pressure on you just for the council to understand what your firm does. Edgar's firm was an active member in securing funding several $1 million for the Monroe County EOC that just did a groundbreaking, this past year there. So no pressure, Edgar. So, we have a police department EOC. So, but thank you, and keep up the great work up there. And you know what our priorities are. And I think, thank you for the comments regarding our upcoming agenda item, which is the comprehensive vulnerability assessment and adaptation plan. And I think the state is doing it right, that if for any municipality to participate, they have to have that in an adopted plan. So that's something that's going on, later tonight. So thank you, Edgar, and the rest of the team.
Well, see you all soon.
Thank you. And Vice Mayor, we also have two more pieces of items there. I'd like to see if we could bring up on Zoom here, Deputy Director of Miami-Dade County Water and Sewer Department, Miss Billy Jo McCarley. As you know, members of council, we have been receiving several calls regarding some of the odors coming from the sewer treatment plant. I can tell you, I've been in direct contact with both of our county commissioners, Commissioner Cohen-Higgins, as well as Commissioner Keone McGee, but also have been in constant contact with Billy Jo McCarley, who's on the call now, that would give us a recap of what is the latest and greatest out there, Billy Jo.
Hey, good evening, everybody. So we came to see you in April, and at that time we had a plan to take care of a backlog of biosolids due to changing regulations. And we were able to secure a place to take those biosolids, and we were getting ready to enter into a 3-year contract with this company. And when we went in front of commission, we started talking to them. They asked us to kind of go to a 1 year to help diversify our vendor pool for who's going to take this biosolids for us. And what ended up happening during that time is our vendor then said, you know what, we kind of see the writing on the wall. We'll take half of your biosolids, but we don't want to take all of your biosolids. So that put us in a rush situation where we've actually solicited an emergency bid to find another vendor to take the biosolids at South. And we're currently working with through another emergency bid with 3 vendors to haul our biosolids. But what that's done is we have actually had a small backlog of biosolids on the yard at our South District facility. It's nothing like what we had in April. And I am happy to say through, let's see, we got 3 different vendors going to 5 different locations. By the end of this week, the biosolids, the stuff that's the real stinky stuff, it will be gone. And in turn, we expect those odors to be gone. And so I do very much apologize that we found ourselves in this situation again. It was never my intention for that. But we do have a plan in place to secure a sustainable allocation. We hope to award that at the February commission meeting. They'll have a little bit of time to fully ramp up, but that should give us a 5-year solution with guarantees to make sure that this situation should not happen again.
I have a quick question. I know at the April meeting, there was discussion about the installation of a deodorizing unit at the South Yard. Has that been installed?
It has, and just due to the open air nature, the odor control system we have in place, and we're trying to always find ways to ramp that up. It is working, but it obviously with the weather conditions we've had this week and what we have on the on our pads, it's not been enough to knock it down.
Okay, so it is plugged in.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Is there a possibility of expanding it? I mean, I think that was kind of the whole idea for that deodorizing system to be able to knock down a great deal of the odor. I mean, do we need more deodorizers out there?
We're always looking for other ways to try to work with the deodorizer and any type of odor control units. The goal is to not have this sitting in the pad. If we don't have it sitting on the pad, then we're not having to fight the odor control systems or, ensure the odor control systems are meeting the needs. But we will, and we are looking at additional options to beef this up.
Okay, thank you.
And one thing, and I don't want to belabor this point, but as we enter into these new contracts, we do have the bids. We're working with the contractors to get this started. The price of biosolids hauling has gone up somewhere between 50 to 100% from where we were in 2023. So as much as we want to award this contract as soon as possible, we just need to make sure we do good due diligence so we are protecting our ratepayers as much as possible. But our staff was meeting with the vendors today just to make sure that they could guarantee they could actually remove the biosolids as they say, and the price that they're quoting was their best price.
Councilmember Duncan, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Thank you, Ms. McCarley. Forgive me for being, or at least appearing, slightly apprehensive, but we've gone through this process before where we seem to have had a solution, and then for whatever the reason being, with the Board of County Commissioners or wherever it fell off the rails, then we have a backup and we have a similar issue to what we've been experiencing, time and time again now. And truthfully, I mean, this for all of us that are living down here in Cutler Bay, for all of the residents, for all of us here sitting at this dais that represent these residents, it has been terrible, like just nonstop nasty. So I guess my question is, with this emergency bidding process, what are the odds that we're going to find ourselves in a year from now in the same situation where all of a sudden one of these vendors or something happens at the county commission level where something falls through? Like, ultimately what I'm asking is, are we getting to a point where we actually have a solution for this problem? Or are we going to continue to put Band-Aids on this and kind of keep dragging our residents through this nasty experience year in, year out?
Yeah, so let me tell you kind of how we got here. In April, when we came to see you, we were calling anyone that had the ability to haul biosolids. And we were able to enter into an agreement with the vendor who had the capacity to meet the loads that we have. We make about 700 wet tons daily of biosolids. And so trying to do what we thought was right for our community, we tried to work on a sole source agreement with that vendor. And the challenge with our commissioners were, you didn't go through a bid. How do we know there's not other people that can do this? And so while we appreciate the work you've done, we are concerned that you didn't do great due diligence on making sure other people couldn't do this. So the bid that we have now, we have gone through a competitive bid process. And we're not trying to rush into the award because we don't want to have a situation where we find out we award this to a vendor who can't meet our needs, or we award this to a vendor that we can guarantee can meet our needs, but maybe one of the other contractors were to protest this and it just extends the process. So that's what's different. The whole state of Florida is being challenged with this right now. And so the next step of what we're trying to do is improve our biosolids process. We're looking at options out. It would reduce our total load. It's a sustainable solution if we could get to like a class A or a higher quality biosolid. But we have a third-party consultant running through what would work best for Miami-Dade. And our goal is to actually try to proceed with a contract to provide a even more sustainable solution. That's kind of the next generation where biosolids is going in the industry.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Ramirez, you're recognized.
Good evening, Ms. McCarley. I'm going to ask this as respectfully as I can. What was the reason that they gave you that the increase was 50 to 100%? Because obviously fuel prices wasn't a factor in this. So what did they present to you to actually qualify an increase of that nature?
So back in 2023, during the when the land management plan had changing regulations with FDEP, there were hundreds of sites inside the state of Florida that you could land apply biosolids. There are currently 47 permitted sites, and many of those sites are not choosing to take biosolids because it's just so difficult to meet the regulation. So now we're in a situation of supply and demand. You can compost, you can take it to landfill, but that's really about all the options we have in Florida. So the people that can actually receive these biosolids, they're selling themselves to the highest bidder. And multiple people in the state of Florida are in our situation. And so the vendor that we had selected, that we had an agreement to try to get into a 3-year deal with them, they were able to pick up the phone very quickly and say, hey, who else is interested in bringing biosolids to us? And they quickly found people that they could diversify their portfolio and get a higher price. So it's supply and demand.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the dais? Nope.
No, thank you, Billy Joe. We're in constant contact with her office. I have her on speed dial. So as we get these types of complaints, her office is doing a great job, fielding those calls and emails. So thank you, Billy Joe, for the update. Last but not least, some good news. As I reported last time, we had our friends from Zoo Miami put in the little, I call it the little box at our Coastal Ridge Preserve Park. And I'd like to announce they heard something. We have bats. There are bats out there. Not in particular order. We have Brazilian Mexican free-tailed bats. We have evening bats. We have northern yellow bats. The ones that got the folks from Zoo Miami very excited, as I call it, like if analogy like Top Gun, that they buzzed the tower. We actually had some Florida bonnet bats that buzzed the tower, that they buzzed the little box. They didn't roast there, but they flew by. So I know that we talked about this at our when we were talking about the adoption of the master plan. So next steps for us, Vice Mayor, members of the council. Well, first I want to thank Ron McGill and his staff and Frank Ridley from the Zoo Miami conservation section there. We're going to be meeting with those folks as well as our consultants to see what we need to do in terms of if there's just basically any modification to our plan, or is it just that northern educational pavilion, put that as a bat house. We'll report that back to the council because I think that opens up a lot of funding sources as well for us, and it provides a good access for residents and a lot of attraction to that Coastal Ridge Reserve Park. So again, I just want to let you know that they did found some out there, and I did learn something new as well, because one of the things that they told us was, we're very typical of trimming sable palms. And that's where some of those bats live. They love, roosting there, I guess, right? Nesting there, roosting there. And we're really excited about that, as well. So we'll report back. We'll keep you posted on the bats. So Vice Mayor, I know it was a lengthy report, but we had a lot of things to cover on the manager's report, and that concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Ralph. Appreciate it. Go on to the town attorney's report. You have 15 seconds.
15 seconds. I just want to announce that my deputy here, Roger Poe, was recently made a partner of Wastewater Helfman, Colin Bierman, and, of course, we'll have to charge more for his time, but it's worth it. No, seriously, it's as you enjoy an extremely attractive rate for all of the attorneys in our firm, one rate. And Roger is extremely deserving. He's been a true leader in our firm and has risen very quickly because it is that extraordinary talent and his experience and having come from the county and giving us another resource in terms of navigating the county, which is one of the greatest things that I think we bring to the table in our service to the town of Cutler Bay and our other clients. And so we're very proud to have him. He's got tenure now.
Oh, that's fantastic. Congratulations, Roger. He's also a Cutler Bay resident, so we'll take credit for.
He's a Cutler Bay resident.
Yeah, and we'll take credit for his rise to the top.
He definitely started rising faster after he settled in Cutler Bay.
All right, now over to the town clerk report.
I just want to step back on the discussion to reaffirm committee members that we kind of skipped over a little bit. So after every election, as we know by ordinance, committee members serve at the will of the council through that election period. So here we are, election took place. So this is kind of the time for you guys to either reaffirm committee members, make any changes to liaisons if you'd like to, if there's any new committees that you might think of that you want to bring up. But this is also the first year that the committees will be affected by terms for the board members. So we did institute terms back in January of 2017. So we have a handful of committee members that are coming up on their terms. Now in January, couple in March, which would affect your Parks Committee. And the one that would be affected the most would be floodplain. Floodplain would have 3 that would be coming up on their terms. So I know I've spoken to the vice mayor, the town manager, Alfredo, the public works director, and our town attorney, that we would be able to maybe bring forth something next month via resolution to maybe carve out an exception for floodplain.
But that should have already been carved out.
It's not in either the resolution 2137 that was passed or in 2102, the ordinance. So it would have to be
the
carved out.
floodplain mitigation committee, and Alfredo is not here, but he could certainly correct me if I'm wrong, is set by charter through what
The floodplain committee, in order for us to continue the CRS rating, is very specific.
Yeah.
You must be a realtor, you must be an insurance broker, and has a certain criteria, not just a resident. So it's really hard to find those folks to want to, take time out of their busy schedule. So yes, it's more, I will call it, it's more technical in nature because FEMA spells out the 5 chairs, the 5 board members, what they need to specialize in.
Right, and so is the floodplain mitigation committee mentioned as part of the committees?
It is part of the advisory committees.
Yeah, but Councilmember Duncan.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I would recommend that this council take up, we already have instituted the term limits on committee members, but I think we should carve out the exception for the floodplain committee, specifically due to the specialized nature of the members of that.
Yeah, no, I agree. It should have, the intention was when these term limits were introduced and ultimately passed by resolution, was that the floodplain committee was exempt. And I don't know how that verbiage was left out of the resolution. I don't know if that's something that we should take up tonight. I think that what we should do is, because we do have folks coming up on term limits. I think the council members need some time to be able to evaluate those committee members that are approaching term limits, because, quite frankly, this is just a tough time for us to revisit this, especially if some of these members are terming out in January. It could virtually leave our committees without quorums.
Right,
So-
the ordinance does allow for extending them up to 90 days beyond that term limit without council action. So it does give us some leeway to figure out what's
Do you need a motion from the dais to extend everybody for 90 days while we look
I
at
mean,
this?
the ordinance suggests that there's no action from the council required in order to extend them
Then-
for up to 90 days.
Okay, then who has the authority to extend it up to 90 days, right? I mean, somebody has to make that decision. I mean, I can't believe that it's
I
not.
think a simple motion under the circumstances.
I agree.
So moved.
Motion to extend committee members up to 90 days is moved by Councilmember Duncan,
I second.
second by Councilmember Lord. All in favor?
Aye.
I hear no opposition, show the motion passed. So that, at least that gives us 90 days to look at everything, and I think that we're gonna have to work and revise that resolution.
Absolutely.
Anything else, Mr. Clerk?
That was the most pressing thing. That's
Okay.
my report.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. We will now move on to item 5, the consent agenda. Looking for any polls at this time. Seeing that there are no polls, looking for a motion to accept the consent agenda.
So moved.
So moved by Councilmember Ramirez. Looking for a second.
I second.
Second by Councilmember Lord. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Show item 5 as approved. Okay, so, okay. Prior to moving to the resolution portion of the agenda, I'm at this time going to reopen the floor for any public comment. Anybody in the? Yep.
Good evening.
State your name and your address, please.
Yes, sir. My name is Eric Eichenberg Jr., and I reside at 8041 Southwest 162nd Street, Palmetto Bay, Florida. Thank you, Vice Mayor and Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak about an issue that is not on tonight's agenda, but one that is important to me, foster care. 5 years ago, my extended family was impacted by the opioid crisis, which led to the removal of my 2-month-old cousin from her home. Witnessing firsthand the process in which a child is removed from foster care led my siblings and I to create a nonprofit called Together We Shall Love Florida. Together We Shall Love Florida is dedicated to serving and assisting children who are currently in Florida's foster care system. Our organization hosts annual educational and community events for foster children, which enables us to share a memory or a new experience while doing it with love and compassion. Over the last few years, my life has been positively impacted by helping children family. I've become a better man because of this experience. As we begin this new year, I urge residents of Cutler Bay and all communities around South Florida to consider helping a foster child. You can become a licensed foster parent through faith-based organizations such as 4Kids or the Dade County Agency Citrus Family Care Network. You can also volunteer or support a foster care organization. There are many opportunities to impact the lives of the most vulnerable among us. Together, we shall love, and along the way, make a difference in the lives of these children. Thank you for the time to speak this evening.
Thank you much, Eric. I think that's a very noble cause, and let's get together after the meeting. I am the chairman of the board for the CHI Foundation, and we do have a foster care program that's part of our organization. So if you want to stick around, if not, I can certainly give you my information, but maybe we might be able to work together and create a partnership.
Sounds awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody in the queue?
No one in the queue.
All right. With that, I will close public comment and we will go on to agenda item 11A, a resolution. Mr. Clerk, would you read the item into the record, please?
A resolution of the mayor and the town council of the town of Cutler Bay, Florida, amending resolution number 24-69, which adopted the budget for the 2024-25 fiscal year by revising the 2024-25 operating and capital budget as outlined in Exhibit A attached hereto, authorizing the town manager to do all things necessary to carry out the provisions of this resolution and providing for an effective date.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Clerk. I'll open this item for discussion. Okay, hearing no discussion on 11A, looking for a motion for approval.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Lord.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Ramirez. This just requires a voice vote, right? So all in favor?
Aye.
I show 11A as passed. Moving on to item 11B. Mr. Clerk, would you please read that into the record?
A resolution of the mayor and the town council of the town of Cutler Bay, Florida, revising the adopted final master plan design for the town's 16-acre legacy park and municipal complex project and providing for conflicts and providing for an effective date. This was previously deferred per January 7th, 2025 special town council meeting to this meeting, January 15th, 2025.
At this time, I am going to request that this item be deferred. Just because of the importance of the item and the mayor is not here, I think it's important that we all have the ability to be able to comment, and especially since Emma Jones has revised the options. I am going to open up this item prior to asking for deferral for discussion, if there's anybody that has any comments. At this time, what I would like to do is get consensus from the council to instruct our town manager and staff to put together what all of our funding options are for this potential project, right? I think that even sitting here today, listening to legislative priorities and different things, there's a potential of an additional 7.2 million on top of our bond, right? The other thing too is we just approved that we will be paying for the remediation of all 16 acres via the ARPA money, and the balance of that being withdrawn from our savings account, so to speak, which now leaves our bond balance much higher, right? So that's something that was not anticipated the last time. The other thing that was really intriguing is, and thank you, Councilmember Duncan, for bringing this up with our financial director, that at this time last fiscal year, we were at 6.1 million. And so far this year, we're at 5.9 million, right? This is an extraordinary position to be in as a council. To have, I mean, revenues stronger than anticipated, expenses less than anticipated, which enables us to so far this year have a surplus that we're talking about. It's something that we may want to consider diverting to this project, via resolution. So there's a lot of, we just learned of additional VCTs, right? Voluntary tax credits that might be available, right? I mean, going from $1 million to possibly $5 million, right? As I had expressed to the town manager and on this dais before, this project is not going to be done next week, right? It's going to be, a 2-year to 3-year process, and there may be all kinds of opportunities that come up over that period of time that provide additional funding. The reason I say that is because we need to look at the entire financial picture and revenue sources that will guide us in choosing the right option, right? So I don't want to have a knee-jerk reaction, say, oh, we can only afford option 6, which might be what we can afford today without taking into consideration future revenue streams. So with that and no objection, would like to direct the town manager staff to come back with those options. Again, it would be at the mayor's decision, but we may also want to think about an additional workshop where all of this can be presented so it doesn't get cluttered within a regular meeting.
Yep. And thank you, Vice Mayor. And I also want to, publicly thank all the council members that have met with both myself and Emma for several hours discussing, reviewing the plans. It was a lot of information we provided you during the January 7th special call meeting. But I want to thank, the mall. They've done, everybody's done their due diligence, as well as yourself, Vice Mayor, that you've been directly involved. And I think you're absolutely right. I think that this is such an important topic that it should be its own standalone meeting. I think, throughout the process, one of the things that we talked about, and folks from the audience and the viewing audience could go back to our January 7th meeting, would look at the different options. The only thing that's going to change from those slides is that we eliminated the option of just only developing 8 of the 16 acres, right? Because we have made the decision, obviously, as you mentioned, Vice Mayor, for the remediation of that. And yes, there's a lot of variable funding sources. You heard a lot of words today. I mean, even comments from our lobbyist, Laura Reynolds, regarding the EO funding. Right. I mean, there's still we're still in very active conversations with Miami-Dade County EO about possibly acquiring 2 of our 8.5 acres where we said we just found the bats. Right. So those are different revenue sources there. During one of our past agendas, we didn't take it for granted, but it was on the agenda that we received the $1.5 million from the Florida's Communities Trust for the property that we just acquired on the Old Color and 87th Avenue. So though you're absolutely right, it forces us to do all that. But I think most importantly, I just want to make sure, and I know Emma's on the line too, but as we meet with our design team, every single option that we reviewed all included community center, pool deck, community building. That doesn't slow us down. I mean, our design team got the marching orders to value engineer that all the way to the bones, right? To do that and deliver a quality, type of a project there. So that's going on in the background as we're going through the financial plan. So I just want to make sure the public and the council members that doesn't slow us down, right? I mean, yes, there's talk about, one of the options, town hall, 2 floors, 3 stories. But again, there's enough work going on that side of the community center, pool, and the parking lot, as I call it, right? Because we know that versus the parking garage, that there's enough work that it's not going to slow down the project. As I mentioned, I think you're absolutely right. It's going to be a 2 to 3 year project. There's a variable funding sources you can see from our lobbyists. We were talking about the EOC, as well as soil remediation project. One of the things that I failed to add during our legislative priorities there, but it's more of a federal priority. I've been in contact already with our federal lobbyist. We actually received a letter of support from Congresswoman Salazar about our EPA grant. So yes, we will make the rounds even in DC. Michael Goldstein, this is what he does for a living with the brownfields. I've been in contact with him about the new incoming president's EPA appointment that's going through the confirmation process. So we are completely wired with that when it comes to that as I like to say all the time, and the mayor would say it all the time, we like going and getting some good FaceTime with these folks. So we have the pieces in place. So you're absolutely right, Vice Mayor. I'd love that challenge, because I think that's the business side of it, that we need to lay it out and we need to take our time versus, it's item, 11 on an agenda. I think it has to be a standalone meeting. It's important enough for the community, but it does not slow down the design process. I just want to make sure that we're clear on that. And lastly, regarding the soil remediation project, we're working closely with Miami-Dade County DERM. We're just waiting for the tree removal permit that we're working with them right now. We're working closely with our friends to try to avoid having a full-blown tree survey when everything's going to be taken down. So we're working on that, because once that is done, then you're going to see a lot of action on the site as well. So this conversation about the proposal, Vice Mayor, that you talked about, different funding sources, right? Because it forces us too, because there's so many different funding sources coming in. It forces us to put it all on paper. Will not slow us down. So thank you, Vice Mayor.
Thank you very much, Ralph. Looking for a motion for deferral on 11B.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Duncan, looking for a second.
I second.
Second by Councilmember Lord. All in favor?
Aye.
Hearing, please show 11B as deferred. Move on to item 11C. Mr. Clerk, would you read that into the record, please?
A resolution of the mayor and the town council of the town of Cutler Bay, Florida, adopting the final comprehensive vulnerability assessment and adaptation plan and providing for an effective date.
I will now open up 11C for discussion. Any comments from the council? Seeing no comments from the council, we'll close and look for a motion on 11C.
So moved.
Approval of motion 11C by Councilmember Ramirez. Looking for a second.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Duncan. All in favor?
Aye.
Please show 11C approved.
Thank you. And Vice Mayor, while we're still on that topic, I want to thank, Jared Munster and Catherine Lyons from the Cordino Group. I mean, you see the vulnerability assessment plan, it's 411 pages. We're very proud of that plan, as Edgar mentioned, how important it is very critical. But I also wanted to highlight deep in those 400 pages, we actually identified Legacy Park as one of vulnerability analysis reports. So that's another potential grant that we could receive through a Resiliency Florida as well. So again, see how these things keep adding up, and we want to make sure it's all part of the big piece of the puzzle. So thank you, Catherine and Jared, for this help, and the Flood Mitigation Committee that, as Vice Mayor, you attended. I think Councilmember Lord also attended, and all the different online surveys that we did. So a lot of public outreach, a lot of surveys that comprise this report. In fact, to the point that I forwarded our report to the county's chief resiliency officer, that her comments were that she's also a town resident. She was very impressed the way it was done, to the point that we want to go after an award as well. I want to go after the grants first. Now we'll try to get the planning award, but I want to try to bring back some money too. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Ralph. I will open up now for any final comments. Nope, seeing no final comments, this meeting adjourned.